When the casualty figures started coming through, public opinion sort of changed, and you had these footballers at the time earning really good money, you know, compared to what the man in the street was earning 100 or so years ago. And whilst initially they were very pleased to go to a game of football, they started to question it after a while, saying, why are you being paid to kick a piece of leather around, you know, when my brother or my uncle is over in France or Belgium risking their lives? They even started getting things thrown at them, you know, fruit. It was awful by all accounts. And it wasn't the opposing teams. This was the supporters' own home team that I was saying this to, like, you know. It became really dire. So on the 15th of December 1914, everything changed at the meeting at Fulham Town Hall. No one had any idea how many would turn up, and they only actually opened up the foyer of the hall for the meeting to take place. But so many footballers turned up, they actually had to open up the main hall, and the building's still there to this day. And they went in there, packed the place out. The atmosphere was electric, and there was various dignitaries on the stage, including the chairman of Leyton Orient, along with a number of other clubs, and passionate speeches were made, and reasons why the footballers should join up. And when it came to the very moment where it said, so who's going to stand up and come forward and sign up for King and Country, it suddenly went quiet, and there was a space of a few seconds before Fred Spider Parker stood up and made his way forward up onto the stage and signed up for the 17th Middlesex, the Footballers Battalion, closely followed, as I said, by Jimmy Hugill and Richard McFadden, and 7 other Orient players. So when it came to the last game of the season, Orient knew, and the supporters knew, this may be the last chance they'll get to play. No one knew what was going to happen with the war, so the stadium was packed out. Some supporters actually had climbed on top of the stands to get a better view. Over 20,000 were at the ground, and not only did Orient win 2-0, but straight after the game, and still sweating, they got out of their iconic kit, straight into uniform, and then paraded round the pitch behind the band of the 17th Middlesex in a farewell parade, and the crowd were going wild. They knew they were applauding, cheering, waving banners, and singing passionate songs. It was an incredible experience for all those involved, and all those present hoped that they would get back together again in good times. The Somme is a river, and all the estuary leading down from the channel down into the heart of France. And on one side, we had obviously had the British, on the other side of the Germans, and the Footballers Battalion was there. Not on the first day of the Somme, I may add, but 2 weeks later. First day of the Somme was known as the bloodiest day of the British Army, but even then, week after week, the battle raged on right through to November. And Orient, as I say, got involved in the second week onwards. And within a few days, the O's were to lose one of their star players, William Jonas, in Delville Wood. William Jonas just said he couldn't take it anymore and made a dash out of the trench back towards the British lines. But as soon as he jumped up, and no more than a pace or so, he was shot down, cut down by the German gunfire. But the fighting was so fierce, the shelling and the blasts was so severe that no one could get to his body. And unfortunately, he was lost to the elements. And therefore, poor William, to this day, doesn't have a grave. But his name was inscribed on the massive memorial at Thiepval. George Scott, he was actually involved in some heavy fighting with the Germans, hand-to-hand combat, and he was wounded and taken prisoner by the Germans and taken to a prisoner of war camp where there was a hospital, where sadly he died of his wounds, and he was buried by the Germans and in St Souple. And with William and George having passed away, the club was already aware of this, they were reeling of this news. And then in October, Richard McFadden, who was bringing a line of troops along a trench, and there was a shell blast which hit him and his comrades, knocking them to one side. And it was hoped he would survive, but unfortunately he died the following day. To know that the club have spent a lot of time and money, and other people involved as well, coming together to replicate the iconic chevron kit is fantastic. It means so much to me as it does to my colleagues on the Somme Memorial Fund. And I can imagine now when they come out of Tynecastle Tunnel at Edinburgh, with that game against Hearts, it's going to be very emotional. You know, I know we're going to have hopefully some of the families there of the lads that served, you know, they're going to feel the same way, I'm sure. You know, and it's wonderful not only to see the iconic design, but to have the Somme badge on there as well. The names of the 3 Orient lads that gave their lives, and also the regiment is on there, on the badge, you know. And the club's been so helpful. You know, they've asked me a few questions and about the design, and I've gone back into the records and checked a few things out. So hopefully this is going to be the most accurate replica kit that's ever going to be, so that we can really do those lads justice. Leyton Orient Football Club, 1916. The coming together of Hearts and Orient and Linfield now, the 3 football clubs, you know, the 3 clubs that really took the lead, you know, joining up en masse in their respective areas and countries. You know, it's really making a point that football did do so much at a time of great need, you know, and it's brought so much goodness forward into the current day and age, and showing football in a great light when at times maybe it's not always seen that way by the general public. This will make people sit up and listen and to watch, and hopefully there'll be some good coverage of our forthcoming game when Orient play Hearts.